Greetings all. Just thought I'd do a quick video for week 1, Philosophy Unit 1, delving into the main activity for this week on analysing and evaluating arguments. So by now you've probably had a little bit of a look around in the class member blog area and looked over the content as well for the week. Really it focuses on the bread and butter of philosophy, which is arguments. Arguments are basically the currency for the subject philosophy. So throughout the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing further activities just in brushing up and getting a few tips and practices on analysing and evaluating arguments. So the key thing for this week is, and this is really my drive home message, is to keep your construction of an argument as simple as you can. Keep it as simple as you can. Perhaps even follow the formula that's included in the weeks. So start your argument with everyone should believe, ... Include the argumentative term because. That signals that there's a reason to follow. And it should only be a couple of sentences, a sentence or two really. The reason being is that we just want to slowly work through structures of arguments. So in order to make it not overly complex for other people in analysing your arguments, just keep it as straightforward as possible. And that way we can start to pick apart and see the underlying structures that go into an argument. So I'm going to look at just quickly, just on that point, I guess in thinking about maybe your familiarity with arguments, perhaps philosophy is a new subject as well. We're using a different, I guess we're really fine-tuning the skills of argument much more than, say, within an English persuasive piece. Usually in English, they're what I like to call the hamburger with the lot effect. So they're trying to throw in as much claims as possible. They just want to kind of throw the whole kitchen sink in, and just out of the consequence of that, maybe I'll be able to convince other people that my position is the best position. We really don't want to do that in philosophy. Think of it like a vegetarian simple dish. Here we have celery and carrots and a bit of parsley. We just want to keep it down to the basic structures, and just think about drawing it back down to its most minimal type of construction, and that will really serve you well throughout the whole year in philosophy. So do make an effort to try and break it down and keep it as simple as you can at the moment. It will be very, very useful when you have to come to make up essays later on in the year. So I've decided to analyse and evaluate John Kay, the other philosophy teacher's simple argument. You can find that in the class blog post. Here we've got John's written, everyone should believe that public libraries provide an important service for the community. This is because, so he's followed the structure, which is cool. I can see his conclusion, everyone should believe that public houses provide an important service for the community. And then he lists a couple of reasons that support this. This is because the library provides the necessary connection to an evolving world of knowledge and ideas in both physical and digital form, which is increasingly important function in today's technologically driven society. Even still, this is probably still a little bit too long, so I want to reconstruct and get to the very essence of John's argument. To do so, I'm trying to use my argument mapping tool, and I've kind of flipped the whole argument upside down. So you'll notice that reason 1 that I've included here actually comes at the very end of John's sentences, and that's just the general thing that we're dealing with. Sometimes we can reconstruct arguments in the way that best possibly illustrates the logic and sequential reasoning of the arguer. So I've tried to reconstruct this John's map. Reason 1, having a connection to world of knowledge and ideas is an important function. That's what I've got as John's first reason. Having a connection to the world of knowledge and ideas is an important function. I've also looked at his argument and I've identified another reason that he includes, and that is that libraries are a necessary connection to an involving world of knowledge and ideas. And from that, it leads on to the conclusion libraries provide an important service for the community. So at the moment, this is a pretty simple argument, and thanks John also for this, because he's made it a little bit easier on me to reconstruct this argument. But I still needed to think about it a little bit and tried to break it down as best as I could. Now that's for the analysis. Okay, so that's for the analysis. For evaluations, we can do a whole host of things. I might question, and I can do this in blog reply comments, I might question what he might mean by various keywords or concepts. Two things that jump out at me was connection and also function in his argument. I might ask John, hey John, what do you actually mean by these terms? So for instance, does he mean connection? Is it in that vague sense that, I have a connection to a distant long lost relative, that I connect some type of DNA, but I've never really seen them? Is that what he means by connection in this construction of argument? So that's one way to engage in philosophical dialogue with another class member. Just to ask, can you just clarify what this term means? We might also consider whether the logical structure of the argument is bulletproof. So I've tried to break down John's argument even more, and I've just given, like a maths equation, I've given letters to equate to various sections of his argument. And it seems to follow a certain structure. Having a connection to world of knowledge and ideas is an important function. We could break this down simply as P, therefore Q. Having a connection to the world of knowledge and ideas, P is an important function, therefore Q. Then we could say libraries are P. Libraries have a connection to the existing world of knowledge of ideas, and that therefore logically leads to our conclusion, therefore Q. Libraries provide an important service. I might change this around actually. That would be one of my suggestions to John. Maybe the conclusion should read something like libraries provide an important function, because in reason 1 he talks about an important function, but in the conclusion he introduces this term, somewhat similar, service for the community. So I just want to keep consistent there with the actual terminology that he's using in his argument. So I'm pretty happy with John's argument. I would just basically just ask a couple of questions about terminology, and also maybe suggest something different for the conclusion. Maybe libraries provide an important function. Seems like that's much more consistent with the structure of his arguments. But you can do other things with evaluating other class members' arguments. For instance, you might have a reason to believe that any one of these reasons is incorrect or wrong, or you have some pretty convincing counter arguments or counter examples. Say, for instance, that having a connection to world of knowledge and ideas is really an important function. So in your evaluation, you could possibly evaluate any one of these reasons, because if one of the reasons is not true, then the conclusion may have some difficulties. So that's about it for the moment. I just wanted to go over this just to give some sense that we're really looking just to cut it back to basics, cut your arguments back to basics as much as possible. Just try to construct the most simplest argument you can. You don't even necessarily have to believe or think that it's true, the argument that you make up. You could just make it up just for the sake of it, just for the activity itself. There's no sense that you need to definitely hold that this argument is gospel truth, but we're just trying, the purpose is really just to get more familiar with argument structures, to break them down using the argument map, and also to think about how we might go about evaluating